Hi, welcome to this podcast. My name is Mike Cornwell. I'm here with Leadership for Tech, and with me is our government sales lead, Tyler Comstock. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go over a sources sought. We like to go over at least one of these a week, post it out on YouTube, and we wanted to help share kind of our thoughts on the sources sought that we're taking a look at these different contract opportunities, both for the benefit of the people who are putting out the sources sought, but also anybody else in this industry who, maybe you're a contract officer or you're a program manager or something like that, and you want a little bit more insight into how successful contracts operate. And so we're going to take a look at the sources sought. We're going to try to find 1 to 3 things that we think are really good about this sources sought, maybe 1 to 3 things that they could improve on it, and just in general, get a clear understanding of what it is they're looking for. So without further ado, let's hop in. Okay, so let's, let me put this up here. Boom. Okay. So this one, we are looking at a DISA sources sought, so the Defense Information Systems Agency. And it looks like, seeking sources for Air Force FMX C2 G0881 System Sustainment Support Services with its J9 Center's Product Development and Management Office. Okay, so let's take a look here. Might not be able to zoom in. Okay, technical capability of a small business. Okay. J9 seeking information for potential sources sought for full lifecycle development and system sustainment of the Air Force Custom, this field maintenance data information system. Okay. Key requirement is to intake new and revised Air Force mission owner, system owner, and user requirements to subsequent plan, design, develop, test, and deploy solutions. Fulfill requirements for continuous delivery model using agile methods. For system sustainment, key requirements to ensure 24/7 high availability, reliability, integrity, security, and performance of the system, application, database, facilitate the system users community to support reoccurring Air Force daily operations, as well as respond to, prepare for critical real-world events. So the first thing I'm seeing here, if I were to pull anything out, I'm already seeing this 24/7 high availability. Now, I don't see any, as of right now, I'm not seeing anything that's actually saying what the actual availability is, because this doesn't really say much, but apparently some sort of level of availability. But let's see here. Tasks to fulfill these requirements include software design, testing systems, system software customization, modernization. Yep. Okay, looks like pretty typical software engineering. Primary technology support include virtualized Microsoft Windows operating systems. Okay, so that's basically just VMs. Microsoft Structured Query Language. This is, just Microsoft SQL servers. Microsoft coding such as C#, ASP.NET. Legacy parts of the system do involve technology support such as Fujitsu Net, COBOL coding, IBM WebFocus, Web Forms, and Unix OS. So first thing to pull away from this is a Microsoft development project. So what this means is, that's what C#, ASP.NET. ASP.NET is a type of web hosting and web displaying technology. This is very dated. I'll tell you that right now.
I saw the COBOL thing too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's certainly dated. They're talking about some sort of old system that they have in COBOL, but most people nowadays don't do development in ASP.NET. And this is also just like a standard kind of Microsoft setup where you've got a Microsoft database backend, and you're doing a backend in .NET and then ASP. But okay, let's see what we got here. Period of performance. Okay, it's a 5-year contract, 12-month base period, 4 12-month option periods. It's very typical. 5-year contract with basically 1 year renewals. Okay.
Here's where we get to the
actual question.
This is, I know that was the intro, but this is where I kind of read it a little differently and a little more along the lines of even possibly being able to take some new technologies like you do. And I guess they're kind of asking here, in my opinion, how you would design and deploy.
Okay. Let's take a look here.
Yeah.
Full lifecycle development responsibility to design. Yep. Describe and provide an example of your company's experience in custom application or development support across the full product lifecycle from development, implementation, maintaining. State specific products, technologies, or code languages utilized when possible. Include magnitude in dollars and scope. Okay. Well, I mean, certainly with this, there's lots we could say. I mean, this is our bread and butter is custom applications and stuff. I mean, I would certainly say as far as technologies, the ones that we have listed, the primary ones that if we were to redo any system or modernize any kind of development, we'd be doing node development with probably a React front end. We definitely would not use a Microsoft SQL database. We would not use Microsoft VMs. You're just begging for vulnerability problems, not to mention just in general scalability and flexibility in what you do with the technology. We would never choose a Microsoft technology. I mean, it's one thing to use like maybe like a cloud situation like their Microsoft Azure, but that's not choosing Microsoft technologies. That's just their cloud. But certainly magnitude and dollars and scope. I mean, the most recent contract that we're on, that contract is, if I had to guess, because I didn't run the numbers since the beginning, but that contract is probably a $10 million contract a year. And we've been doing that contract for over 5 years now. Scope, I mean, at least that one contract is an enterprise testing system that uses a REST backend and has a React front end to it. I mean, there's nothing about what this thing is saying that would scare me. Okay, Scrum, storyboards, objectives, GitLab, Confluence. Okay. Describe and provide an example of your company's experience in performing custom application or system development in an agile and continuous delivery environment. Well, considering the government has gone completely and totally in agile, every contract that I have done since I was almost 18 years old has been in an agile environment. And I've been using, GitLab has been the standard for over 6 years now. We also use Bitbucket because some people are still kind of using some legacy stuff. But Confluence, I mean, what's there to say? I mean, it's a place to put dead documents up that that are not, that people have to manually go and update, but they're not necessarily functional documentation. I'm a really big advocate of functional documentation. I'm really not entirely sure what more they really need from that. I mean, we use GitLab for everything. Let's see here. Number 3. Okay. Full life cycle, administration, production, non-production, CWO application instance. Describe and provide an example of a company's experience designing, installing, configuring, administering, maintaining application web instances for enterprise systems, state-specific product, technology supported whenever possible. I mean, this is the same thing as number 1, but I mean, I guess the only thing I might add is just this is where we use cloud pretty heavily. Things like AWS, so that it has like scalability, not to mention the ability to reduce costs and manage costs to the use on the system. So as the system use goes up, certainly the costs increase, but as the system is not being used, it collapses down to, I mean, a lot of people may not believe it, but if, for example, the enterprise system that we built, if no one is using it, it costs $0. And so I can assure you their setup does not do that because they have by virtue that they have these Windows VMs and stuff, they have to manage these operating systems and stuff like that, and they're always paying for it. Now, I haven't seen anything that says cloud thus far, which I wouldn't be surprised if there's no cloud related to this. I'm kind of looking ahead. I don't really see anything cloud related.
No, it wasn't mentioned. It was,
yeah,
like you said, a little more dated
But
with some of the software.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is an on-prem type system where they literally have some servers somewhere, then they have rack space where they've got, some Windows VM, like server that has like a bunch of VMs on it, and then they use them for this purpose. But I guess the only thing I might say is this is all our company does. And we've developed many systems over the years, everything from we've developed a enterprise level farm management system for farming businesses where they have tons of different models and tons of different information that has to be stored through a web interface. Developed things like a defense travel system using React and a Node backend. Actually, I think at the time it might have actually been Python if I'm not mistaken. But built e-commerce websites that had inventory integrations and stuff. Let me see. Those are kind of a couple that come to mind. Right here, let's look at number 4. Okay, responsible for production, continuity of operations. Describe and provide an example of your customer experience designing, installing, configuring, administering. Is that what we just did? How's it any different? This 3 and
being a little redundant. Actually.
This 3 and 4 look exactly the same. Yeah, for enterprise systems, we already answered this.
Yep.
All right, number 5. Critical system by DISA due to mission essential priority daily operations as well as real-world mission response. Incident response to repair system, restore normal operations, include 24/7 callbacks of all staff to respond to outages and incidents are required to guarantee system availability. Fitness for use, reliability, security, and performance. I'd say that's micromanagement right out of the gate. But describe, provide an example of your company's experience providing incident response to include repair and restoration support to return to operation activities for incidents, outages, including after hours ones, include magnitude, dollars, and scope. So I'd say in general, this hasn't really been our primary focus. This is definitely more of that day-to-day operations versus long-term, more in the rear type development activities. Most of the things that we've worked on in the last number of years has been space related, and a lot of space related stuff doesn't have these kind of needs to it. I will say certainly at one point we were doing digital forensics, and while that was not as part of normal ops, when they would be doing ops, we would provide additional support where they would need us to basically, as they were working on things, if they were to start to have issues, we would basically be kind of callback support that they could like pass a hard drive to us that our software wasn't able to run through, and seeing if we could run it through our development environment and actually try to get information off of it. Another thing is our software currently on our kind of primary contract that does as part of this enterprise test system, when they're running enterprise tests, like when they're running kind of hands-on keyboard, we've provided additional support as needed to basically analyze results and if there were any bug fixes in our software to go and provide it. Magnitude and dollars and scope. I'm really not sure how to answer that because I certainly wouldn't be able to quantify the number of dollars in response to critical operations. But if we were to look at this, I mean, certainly we would be baking in the fact that you would need staff to be able to respond to this. But I can tell you right now, I would not be hiring. Every person would be not 24/7 callback. This would not happen. We would hire people specifically for that purposes. And manage that as necessary. I would want to know more about what is their expectations, like how frequent have they had to do this kind of stuff, because without knowing more, it'd be very difficult to actually staff that. Okay, here we go. Special requirements. You would think they would have put this up at the top. All right, is controlled unclassified information, that is that CUI stuff. Unclassified, non-classified internet, NIPR, but classified data processing on SIPR is a possible future requirement. Since the level of work performed in this contract up to the secret level requires secret level eligibility, the company must have a final secret facility clearance from the. All staff must have a secret level clearance to be granted authorized access to the DISA network. Yep, which is mandatory for all staff to perform under a task order. Staff requiring authorization but not elevated privileges. Yep. Do not require certs. Yep. I'm not entirely sure what cert that is, but it's a probably a typical information assurance certification. So it's probably like Security Plus. And that's for people who have, elevated network privileges. Yeah. Yeah, depending on network role, elevated IT. Okay. So in other words, they're not saying that anyone needs any certifications, but if this contract were to extend onto the SIPRNet, then people would need IA certs. All right. Okay, and then they got a bunch of submission type stuff.
Yeah, that's the end of that.
Okay. Well, do you got any questions about this? Because this seems fairly straightforward. I'd say
I do. And I saw the 24-hour thing, and I didn't put that to the side, source of salt in general, just because, like you said, this might just be put there, but it might not be exactly what they're talking about. And that's why I said, let's check it out anyway. Because, like you said, it may not ever occur. It may not. These are questions I have for the actual.
This just is basically saying that, one would need to be prepared that if there's these essential priority daily operations, they would want us to provide additional support. That's all that really means.
Exactly.
Respond to outages and incidences, guarantee system availability. I mean, they don't really say much about that. Normally, the way that is determined is things like you would create the number of nines that the system would need to be up. Is it 99.5, or is it 99.95? What is it? What is like a reasonable uptime? And why that's actually a pretty good thing to do, to include something like that, is because then at that point, there's a measuring stick that you could be jumping, because sometimes you can get into a situation where it's actually guaranteed that if you don't define what that uptime is, there will be a different expectation of uptime. So if there's any downtime, which of course there will be downtime, then it's up to their feelings of whether or not you've made good on to being up 24/7.
Yep.
So
another question I have that in the back of my mind is going to be, how open are they to getting out of this legacy type software and going into the world of updated softwares that are more high tech and cost efficient? And
Yeah, it's a good question because
those are the two things.
I would definitely say this technology stack is extremely limiting on the market of people who can and are willing to work those. Because I can assure you that most people do not want to work with ASP.NET. Period. It's this point, it's a very old technology. I started to put this in perspective. I did ASP.NET when I first started doing development, like 15 years ago.
Well, and another thing to remember about Source of Salt in general is it's really a market research tool right now. They may be completely open to updating the and that's why I wanted to read it anyway. Even though it's outdated software, even though it's got 24/7 response time, those things may just be. It may not be actually what they're saying here, or they may be able to persuade them otherwise.
I'd say I'd rate. Here's from the other sources that we've seen that. In comparison, one of the things I would kind of downgrade this one is that it doesn't have clarity on the frequency of any of these activities.
Yeah, it's a little vague on that, I agree.
So, I mean, it's things like we've seen in the past on some of them that, they'll tell you the frequency of which they're putting out new changes to the system. Because as I read this, in reality, they may produce almost nothing new on the system. They may just be hiring people who are just going to sit there and wait around until there's bugs. And when there's a bug, then, you get a call and then you have somebody to go and fix. Because it's not clear to me, to what extent is this enhancing versus help desking type stuff. To me, it's not super clear which one that is. It looks more like a little bit less like a development contract and more of like a management and maintenance contract. That's what I'm seeing.
I do see the maintenance word being a part of this for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's why they've got stuff high availability and this kind of stuff, and then you come down here and then it's like 24/7 operations and stuff like that. That's most development situations are not doing any of that. They're not involved in ops. They're normally, they're building a system. They go and they deploy it, and then they kind of manage. You might have another set of types of people who are going to be the front line that receive those kinds of requests and then broker them with like the development team of, the development team is going to put this in as part of their cycle. So it's not super clear. A kind of another thing I'll knock about this, that it's not super clear to me. Agile and 24/7 high availability don't really go hand in hand. And
why is that?
That's because when you're doing an agile methodology, like we were saying last time, it's not uncommon for you to run into a situation where you have to complete your sprint before you can then go and pick up other stuff. And so they want you to stop doing everything that you're doing right there to then be available to that. Well, the way to manage that, and that's not to say that in order to appropriately manage that, what you have to do is you actually have to parcel out time for these people who are doing an agile process for them to respond to those things. So in other words, you have to ahead of time say that you're not going to do any work, or you're going to do only a little bit of work. And if this comes up, then you'll take priority over that. That's how you have to run these things. I'd be concerned that they don't understand that and that they would rather you break your sprint in order to address these things. And that's really not a good, it's not a good practice.
That makes sense. I got you.
But as long as they care more about the results than they care about some of those other details, there's nothing here that hurts my head about being able to manage a team to make this happen. Any other questions?
Mm-mm.
Cool.
I thought it was parts in there where it's kind of like the bread and butter, but it's in different technologies. But who says they aren't willing to? Who knows? Maybe they are willing to change over.
Yeah.
Or if it's a maintenance thing, that's totally different route, like you said. So.
Yeah. That would be some of the. It's kind of interesting.
It is kind of straightforward, and that's kind of why I wanted to look over this one.
I do. another thing I might knock them for is, what exactly are you wanting from this sources sought? I mean, are you just purely doing a market research? I mean, are you looking for feedback? I don't know.
Makes sense.
But
That's
why we do these videos. We're not 100% sure, but at least we'll provide a little bit of feedback and certainly answer these questions in a more, kind of more comprehensive type way than what you might see written down when we go and we write it out. But if that's it, let me go ahead and flick over. If you like this kind of thing, definitely like and subscribe to our channel. You'll see more of these kinds of things where we'll look at these sources sought and we'll do the comparisons between the ones that we've seen. But we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.